The sad truth is that the vast majority of people will never retire early. As it stands today, only 1% of people actually retire before the age of 50, and that number is likely to go down in the future because of the economic context that we're currently living through. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom, because if you envision yourself on a beach retired by the age of 50, there are things that you can do today to significantly increase your chance of being one of the few that are actually able to do that. But first, let's take a look at what the prospects are now for early retirement and why it's only going to get worse unless each of us as individuals take control of our own destiny and do something about it. For starters, the average actual retirement age in the US is around 62, and in other countries it's slightly different. Could be 64, could be 61, but on average, early to mid 60s is when people retire. And the sad thing is that after retiring at age 62, people only live on average for another 18 years. So that is 18 years that they get to spend in retirement and enjoy the fruits of a lifetime of hard work. Only 18 years. There are three major issues making the retirement prospects of working people today look a lot worse. Those are the state of people's individual finances, the state of government finances and pension, and the fact that we're dealing with massive inflation and economic headwinds. The average person's finances are really bad. In fact, the vast majority of people in North America are underprepared for retirement even at the age of 60 plus. They don't have enough savings and they're mainly reliant on a government pension, which, as we'll see in a minute, is not necessarily something that we'll be able to rely on as much moving forward. According to research about retirement in America in particular, most families, even those approaching retirement, have little to no savings and are completely reliant on a government pension. But government pensions are not reliable. There is another problem, a massive problem that's facing Western countries around the world, which is that there's a major demographic bomb that is about to go off. When baby boomers all around the world start to retire en masse, there's going to be a huge wave of people that are entering into retirement and starting to collect government pensions. And the problem is that there haven't been enough new citizens being born to replace their ranks and to continue to pay into these government pensions to keep them going. And because of this, what we will see is that young people have to continually pay in more to be able to fund this massive expense, and older people on the verge of retirement are going to be asked to keep working longer. In places like the UK, the retirement age is already going to be pushed back by 2 years by the year 2028. And so because of this, relying on a government pension for retirement is becoming increasingly risky. Inflation is currently having a major impact on how much you might need to save in order to be able to retire, especially if you're looking to retire early. For example, the average amount that people think they would need to retire in the US is 1.7 million, which is up several $100,000 from projections just a few years ago. But the issue is that salaries and wages have not increased as fast as inflation over the past few years. So a big gap has opened up there. Purchasing power is down, and the retirement targets that people had even just 1 or 2 years ago need to be extended now to account for that impact. And so all of this leads to a pretty grim picture about the prospects of retiring at all, let alone retiring early. But like I said at the beginning, it's not all gloom and despair, because there are some things that you can do right now to drastically improve your chances of being one of the very few people that actually manages to retire early. Even just the fact that you are aware of the situation and already thinking ahead is a major first step. But let's talk now about some more specific practical things that can be done. For starters, if you want to be one of the people that actually manages to retire early, then you have to set a goal as early as possible. Because of the compounding effect of investing and making savings over a lifetime, over an entire career, it is hugely important to set a retirement goal, an amount, a figure that you're aiming at, and actually stick to it. Set that money aside week after week, month after month, and let that snowball for you over the course of your lifetime. Because most people never actually do that. Most people just rely on a government pension, and by the time they get close to retirement, they realize that they really don't have any savings, they really don't have any investments, and so of course they're not going to be able to retire early. If you want to be one of the people that does retire early, you need to set that target now. Number 2, think about where you want to retire and what kind of lifestyle you expect to have. This will 100% impact your target, and there's something called geographic arbitrage, which is a very fancy term for just saying that you could actually move somewhere with a lower cost of living and retire much earlier, or live longer in retirement off of the same amount of money that you would have to spend by living somewhere in an expensive place. And once you factor in things like healthcare and cost of living, how long are you going to be able to live in that place based off of the target that you set for yourself? So for example, in my personal case, I think that if I saved $1.5 million US, I would be able to live for at least 30 years comfortably in a place that has a lower cost of living, which are the kinds of places that I personally want to be retiring in anyways. Places with nice warm weather and beautiful beaches where you can live a very comfortable life without having to shell out the kind of money that you would have to pay, for example, if you lived somewhere like New York City. Number 3, aggressively pay off any high interest debt you might have. This doesn't require much explanation, just do it. Number 4, adopt the mindset that you have to pay by yourself for your retirement. Forget completely about the government pension that might be coming to you at the age of 65 or 67, because who knows whether or not that's actually going to come and what amount that's going to be. If you plan and base your retirement goals on the assumption that you're going to have to pay for all of it personally, then you're going to be in an excellent financial position, especially if and when that government pension does start rolling in later on in life, because that is just gravy. Number 5 is set a savings target as a percentage of your income. It could start small, something like 5% of your income or 10% of your income, but over time, especially later in your career as your salary increases, try to push that savings goal as a percentage of your income up from 5 or 10% to 25%, 30%. Something like 50% would be incredible, but obviously that's going to be tough to achieve, and it depends on balancing expenses today, trying to keep costs down. But remember this, living below your means today means that you're going to be able to retire much, much earlier. And every $1,000 that you invest now could potentially be buying back weeks, months, or even years of your time in early retirement because of the principle of compounding interest. If you invest that money that you save wisely and you invest it early, then you could be buying your own time back. This brings me to the next point, which is that yes, you have to invest those savings. Just holding cash in a bank account is pretty much worthless, especially in this inflationary environment. You're losing purchasing power of 6% or 7% every single year that your money just sits idle. The only way to protect against that is to invest, and it can be in stocks, bonds, real estate, crypto, precious metals, whatever. But it's important to have a diversified portfolio that is suited towards your goals and your target, and to make sure that you stick to it. And the final thing that you can do now that will increase your chances of retiring early is to strategize now and invest in ways that you can earn residual income in retirement that you don't actually have to actively work for. Now, this can be things like investing in dividend stocks that pay you out monthly or quarterly, investing in things like rental properties, starting a side hustle where you don't have to actually actively manage it. And even in retirement, there are studies that show people that stay active and engage with their communities and do some sort of work or creative work, let's say, are much more likely to live longer and enjoy a higher quality of life. So in retirement, it might actually be wise anyways to have some sort of side hustle or project where you put 10 to 15 hours per week into something that gives you creative enjoyment, that you find fulfilling, and that also pays you a little bit of money that you can help use to pay your bills. And I can absolutely guarantee you that if you implement all of the things we just talked about today, you will be in a much better financial position than the majority of people out there when it comes to retirement, and you will be definitely more likely to retire early. So good luck in your journey, and may the odds be ever in your favor.